Hey, welcome to this episode of Coach Etch Tips. I'm Jeff Etch, and here again. This is like one of the most moving interviews I've ever had. A gentleman, Ricky Martinez. He's a nationally known speaker, motivator of students, creating connections, building relationships, showing gratitude, and just giving true purpose to students and making them excited. And one of his big statements and beliefs is you have to reach them before you teach them. And he is totally focused on relationships, building relationships. He motivates teachers how to connect with students and try to reduce the amount of burnout that's involved in education. And he also loves to speak to students and stuff. He probably got best known in one of his videos that he recorded that went viral called Limitless. And a person named Ellen DeGeneres had a chance to see this video and invited him on her show. So I think you really enjoy hearing Ricky today, hear him giving his message. It's so outstanding. I can't wait for you to hear it. I'm going to shut up and move right to the interview right now. Okay. Thanks. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Coach Etch Tips here today. I am really, really excited to have our guest here today, Ricky Ramirez, right? Ricky, I said that all right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I first heard him on the Big Education Idea podcast and reached out to him, and he's you have some unique stories kind of tell you about what happened in his life to make a big change here. But Ricky, I'm so glad you're coming on the channel here. I know people can get a lot of value from this and stuff, and I appreciate you doing this. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself, your background, and kind of how you ended up here?
Yes, sir. Definitely. Thank you. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to share my message on your platform. I appreciate it. I think we need more veteran educators with your type of passion and your type of drive to continue making a difference for the right reason. So I salute you, sir, as well. So thank you. But yeah, born and raised in Northeast El Paso. That's West Texas, as far West Texas as you can go. Some people don't even consider us Texas, really. But we come from humble beginnings, single parent household, grew up in the projects. And my family, we're pretty big, 5 boys, 1 girl. Government assistance, food stamps, welfare, Medicaid, WIC, like anything that was out for struggling families, we were on it right at one point. So kind of growing up that way with an absent father, I didn't like school at all. I never thought I was a smart kid. In my family, we never talked about college ever. It was not. I can tell you, I remember not one single conversation about college. I love my mom to death, and I love the way she raised us. But the way she was raised, we were taught that there's only two routes for us to take. One was the streets, which some of my family members did take that route, and the other route is the military. And there's no other options for us. So I ended up joining the military. I joined the Marine Corps, served 4 years. I love the military. I loved what I experienced, leadership-wise, culture-wise, diversity. I learned what true diversity is. I learned what it felt like to be a minority, right? Because in El Paso, we're predominantly Hispanic. So we're a minority, but we're still the majority here. So once I joined the Marine Corps, it was a culture shock to me. And like I said, I loved everything about it besides the deployments. And once I deployed twice, I thought, yeah, I can't do this for too much longer. I'm a mama's boy. I miss my mama, so I wanted to come right back home. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when I get home? And then I thought to myself, well, why did I even make it out of my situation? And it always boils back down to teachers, right? Teachers, coaches. And it was always those teachers who saw me as more than just ID number. It was always those teachers who saw me as more than just a test score. They saw the whole child. And I hate using buzzwords, but that's what they saw. They saw the whole child, right? Coach Essex comes to mind, rest in peace. Miss Wiggs comes to mind. I still talk to her. Mr. O'Malley comes to mind. So I had several champions, and everything that I do boils back down to Rita Pearson's champion TED Talk. I know we've all heard it, right? So she said every child deserves a champion. Well, in my case, I needed like 5 or 6 champions to get out of my situation. So I wanted to become that champion for students in my city, and specifically in my community. So be careful what you wish for. I ended up getting a job at the old high school that I attended, which is really cool. And I got to see kids who look like me, talk like me, and walk like me. And I got those kids who gave me the same problems that I gave my teachers. So everything came full circle. And then I did my administrative internship at the middle school I went to. And that principal said, Rick, you would be the ideal AVID coordinator here. I love your work ethic. I love your teaching philosophy. I love your leadership style. She said, would you be interested? And this is a week before school started.
Oh,
So
wow.
the moment I read that AVID description,
Yeah.
and I saw that it did aim for kids in the middle, and it aimed for kids who reminded me of me, I thought to myself, well, if I can do that and help kids like me choose the route that they want to go on because that's what they want to do with their lives, then that's what I have to do. And I transferred over. My old principal wasn't too happy, but he let me transfer. And I taught there at the middle school for a while, for 5 years, and got teacher of the year. Somehow, some way, teachers were crazy enough to nominate me as teacher of the year. Then went on to win the district teacher of the year, which I'm still surprised, because in my interviews and in my my essays, I purposely stood away or stayed away from buzzwords. I stayed away from all the educational jargon. I didn't talk about anything that most people talk about. I just wanted to keep it real, and it worked out for me. Long story short, Ellen caught hold of what I was doing in my community, and here we are today.
That's cool, man. One thing's interesting, it just made, when you're talking, it hit me, was that picture, and you talked about like AVID and what it did for kids and stuff. And there was a point in time probably in your school, and you said you had challenges and stuff, but had anybody in your family gotten a college degree or gone into education or teaching or anything
No.
at that point? So what was the kind of, one of the things I've always liked is you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of kids don't even know what that picture of life is like because they're so repressed. You hear so much, it's close to home for you, the border and the issues going on right now with the kids and stuff there, and the life that's the only picture they've known. They don't know what a college campus looks like. And I know that's what AVID did for a lot of our kids whose fans, they've never been on a college campus. And all of a sudden they take a field trip down to school and they're like, this is pretty cool. Now I have a picture. I can see it. I could see myself going to school here and becoming something. When did that happen for you when a picture finally kind of clicked? Was it before you went in the Marines, or was it while you were there? When was that?
It actually happened my last 6 months in the Marine Corps. I had a superior, I don't want to say a rank or a name, but he asked me what I was going to do. Was I going to stay in or was I going to get out? And I said, well, sir, I get the GI Bill now, and they're going to pay for my college. They're going to pay me to go to school. So I might as well, and I'm going to get book stipends, right? So I might as well give it a shot. And he turned around, and this was in front of all of our unit, right? He turned around, he pounds on the door behind him, and I'll never forget that. And he told me, this is going to be you. Within 6 months of you getting out of the Marine Corps, you're going to be knocking back on this door, begging to come back in. And he said, I've worked with you for the past 4 years. He's like, I just don't think you're college material. I don't think you got it. So at that moment, I said, you know what? I'm going to get out, and I'm coming home, and I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to give it a shot at least. So to this day, when I get tired, I think about him, and I get back to work. And I've invited him to all of my graduations so far, and he doesn't ever respond to my emails. But
Oh, really? He can't just say, hey, you know what? I'm really glad you proved me wrong.
Yes, that's what I tell him.
Why can't the dude say that? I mean, you'd think you could just, but whatever.
I thank him, actually. Yeah, I thank him, because if it wasn't for that comment, maybe I would have stayed, and I don't know.
Yeah, well, lots of times in life, we all want the positive to motivate people, but sometimes the negative can be the thing to just say, look,
Definitely.
you're wrong. And that can be a thing. I mean, I know in my years in coaching basketball and football and stuff, lots of kids come to me and say, hey, why aren't I playing more, coach? Well, you need to show me a reason. Maybe I'm not, but I'm making choices I can make. Okay, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And I've had kids go back, and they earned the right to get back out there because you just aren't good enough yet.
Right.
But, I appreciate it. One of the big things you do, you paint pictures for kids. I've seen some of your videos and things you do. And if we start that relationship part back when you were just teaching, I get you out walking, but in the classroom, I heard you talk, your connections, how you connect with kids and reach them before you teach them. And if you could talk a little bit and elaborate on all that philosophy, it'd be great, because that's what people are really looking for.
Yes, sir, definitely. So when I got into education, fresh out the Marine Corps, I had it backwards. And when I had my first classroom, I thought, I'm the adult now. I have my educator certificate. I got the degree. I got the teacher badge. You have to listen to me because I'm the adult. And my high schoolers showed me that, that doesn't work around here anymore. So I thought to myself, wow, anyone who I've ever listened to as a student, I never asked them how many degrees they had. I never asked them what their GPA was. I didn't care about any of that stuff. What I cared about was how they treated me. So for me, it was kind of just a reflection point to think, okay, I'm doing things wrong. It's not working, right? What do I have to do? So I thought, okay, let me do what Mr. O'Malley did. Let me do what Miss Wiggs did. Let me do what Coach Essex did. Let me take their approach. I bring a little bit from everyone's philosophy to the table, and I apply it to myself, to my practice at least. And that's when things really started to turn around for me. And when I focused on reaching before teaching, right, then I was able to increase the rigor in my classroom. Then I was able to have my kids thinking at higher levels. Then I was able to have students taking over the classroom and really running the classroom for me. Because as my buddy Patrick Briggs says, he's an avid Northeastern director. He says that kids will learn for you before they're willing to learn from you, right? And I take it a step further and I say, that's absolutely 100% correct. But if you do things correctly, once kids learn to love learning, then they'll stop learning for you and they'll start learning for themselves. Yeah. And that's when the true beauty of learning happens. So I'm really big on, just reaching before you teaching, man, and relationships before rigor. And it's all research based. And for some reason, a lot of teachers have a lot of pushback against that philosophy still. And I get it, right? There's testing they got to stay with, right? There's their curriculum they got to stay on track with. And sometimes they don't have time for relationships. And I get it. But there's a way to build in relationships with your curriculum. And you just got to be strategic in your approach to it. But it's possible if you're intentional with building the relationships and reaching first.
I agree that I did an interview yesterday with the lady who does a credit recovery course, but she works with the kids that have been disengaged and they want to get out of high school someday. And she's just saying, I have to connect with them and reach them first before they're even begin to get engaged in learning. Because you need to understand, it's pretty hard to go learn from somebody you don't like.
Yeah, and there you go. Yeah, you said it right there.
So it's like, she says, I have to create that relationship, that bond first. And I got to find out how fast they can take stuff too, because that's kind of a different thing. Right now everybody's prepping because the Minnesota Achievement Test MCA start here in about a month at the end of April. So teachers are all whacked out and going crazy, and they're going back to more full-time teaching in person and everything. And I wish they weren't doing the testing this year, but they have to so focus in, and some kids just aren't ready to take it that fast. And some kids, they've been way ahead all along. So, but what are some of the, she shared some things, but some of the little things you do when you first would get those kids coming in that first day or that first week or two, some of those little things that you did intentionally to do the reaching, whether it's something of your own design, your previous teachers, or something in research you learned about that really said, okay, this is what I need to do right now to get that reach them part done. What were some of those things, if you could share that?
Yeah, definitely. Anything I share in terms of reaching kids and building these relationships with kids, it's nothing revolutionary. Yeah. And when I sit down and think about it, I'm like, this, to some people, it comes naturally. I think to me, it just came naturally. And it wasn't until I started studying further education philosophies that I realized, wow, this is actually research-based. But nothing revolutionary. I'm surprised I get paid to go present sometimes. But simple things like making kids feel seen, right? It's so small as standing outside during transition time and not just standing there and saying good morning, but really seeing them, really noticing, wow, nice haircut today. And when you tell a kid he's got a nice haircut, he's gonna smile, right? You tell a girl, hey, I like those braids you got on today, she's gonna smile, right? And that right there is a research-based proven when you greet kids at the door and you make them feel seen, that's going to increase their engagement in your classroom. So it's something so small as making a kid feel seen, but genuinely being interested in who they are as a person. And I know oftentimes we do things like, how was your game, right? But it's just a conversation in passing. If we remember these conversations with kids and we remember that John or little Susie scored a goal in soccer, we can apply that to our math lesson for the day. Hey, when Susie scored a goal, what was the curve of, I don't know math, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Using their stories and bringing that into the curriculum makes them feel seen, makes them feel valued, makes them feel heard. Another thing I do is so Manny Scott says one of the best ways to reach kids is to become a student of your students. So learning about their families, learning about their favorite music, learning about their cultures, and then giving them a space in the classroom where we can honor their the diversity of the classroom. students nowadays where I'm from, in my community, kids love hip hop music. So for me, that's easy because I love hip hop music too. So when my kids are struggling, I'll play their little hip hop songs. I'll play the edited version, of course, but I'll
Yeah.
play the little hip hop songs, right? And there's some songs that they are trending like worldwide. Old Town Road was a big song. I think you remember that one, Old Town Road, about 3 years ago. So I told my students, I said, check it out. We're slacking it this week. It's a long week. We got testing coming up. I get it. But if you all give me some good engagement this week, if you all are on time to class this week, I'm going to learn your song. I'm going to learn those lyrics, and we're going to do a music video. And we did it. And it was great because that day we had one of the best philosophical chair sessions that we had the entire school year. It had to look foolish a little bit, had to be a little bit vulnerable, right? I had to go down to their level and reach them where they were at. But to me, it was an investment, and the return on the investment was higher learning in my classroom.
Oh, without a doubt. And you talk about that, kind of what you create a little bit of. I mean, you taught kids from diverse cultures, but you also create that culture in your own classroom. And one of the interviews I did back a couple of months ago was a gentleman who's one of the 5 finalists for Teacher of the Year in Minnesota. And he's also head basketball coach. They just qualified to make the state tournament the other night. But he says, yeah, every classroom's got culture, but doesn't mean it's good culture, could be bad culture. And I think that's really cool. You create that culture, meeting them where they're at, because it's an environment. You spend so much time in that classroom. Let's be comfortable. Be here at home, and you talk about hip hop music, and generationally probably fits in a little bit more. I got to admit, I hear it and I can relate to it because I spent my last 5, 6, 7 years coaching 7th and 8th grade boys and girls basketball.
Yeah.
Started my career out with D1 basketball, but that's where I ended. Instead of going up the ladder, I went down the ladder. But I loved every second of it. But social media, we talked a little bit before we came on here, and that's one of the things that's I don't want to say it's controversial, but people aren't quite sure where to go with it right now in education. Is that like crossing the line? I don't want to get too personal. What are your thoughts on social media? How did you use it as a teacher to relate, to meet kids where they're at? Share a little bit on that.
I think if as educators, if we don't evolve with the times, then we're going to get left behind. And when teachers are left behind, then the students suffer the most. I think social media nowadays should be embraced. Some of the best PD I have that I've encountered comes through Twitter. Some of the best strategies that I've seen from teachers using in their classrooms comes through Instagram and Twitter. So I think it's time for us to embrace that we are in a social media driven world nowadays. And if we go about it professionally, right, and ethically, then I think it's a good thing. I think social media can be used as a tool. And that's what I see it as. People tell me all the time, why do you post so much education stuff? I said, well, because social media is a tool. There might be that one teacher out there who needs to hear that message, or that one student who needs to hear that message. So why would I keep my gift to myself, right? That sounds weird. I don't want to say it my gift, but why would I keep my message to myself when someone out there needs to hear it? Because I know for me, when I see all these rockstar teachers out there sharing their content and sharing their strategies, I steal that, right? I steal that. I'm going to put my own spin on it. And then my kids love some of those things, and I take them straight from social media. But I get there is a boundary that we should not cross. I completely get that. But if we go about it the right way, social media is a game changer.
So do you personally connect with you? And Twitter's kind of easy. People, I think people can just follow you. It's not like it'd be private stuff like with Instagram and Facebook and those things. You can do your settings whichever way you want. Mm-hmm. Do you connect with kids? I mean, I've taught from 13 to 18-year-old kids, and I have my own personal thoughts. So what are your thoughts on connecting with them, just relate, being part of their life? You can go to kids' basketball game and see them playing the game, the next day talking about them after that game, a great game. Or if you're connected with them on Instagram, follow them or something, you can see the results of the game and connect with them that way, or they can see something cool that happened with you. I mean, where are you at with on that issue?
Yeah, that's definitely that's a tricky area. I know what I did with my classrooms is I created our Avid Instagram page, where it was and I ran it by the principal, of course. A lot of that was actually student ran, and we had to approve the post. We had to approve what went on that page. But that was also a good opportunity for a kid to reach out to say, hey, Mr. R, there's a death in the family, and I'm not going to be at school next week. So I'm thinking, well, if it wasn't for this social media, I would have not known that Johnny was going to be out all week. So yes, it is tricky, but I think if you go about it the right way, and if you follow certain guidelines and structures, then you can use it to your advantage to really improve the learning process in your classroom, to really learn more about your students as well. And that's also a good time to teach your kids about how to use social media, right? Social media etiquette. I tell my kids, like, look, you're a part of the Instagram, the Avid Instagram page at our campus. Just know that I don't want to see what you're doing. That doesn't align with the way you were raised. That doesn't align with what we teach here in school. I said, so y'all got to be careful. Don't even follow the page, because I don't want. I'll tell your mom. I'm gonna call mama and let mama know, yo, Johnny's doing this and that. So again, just your approach and how you do it. But for me, with my students, it was a big learning opportunity for my kids to learn how to use social media the right way. And a lot of my kids did change how they use social media. A lot of my kids started using it to promote their basketball. They want to get a scholarship, right? Well, a lot of athletes are found on Twitter and Instagram. So a lot of my kids are just posting about volleyball now, or they're just posting about basketball now, as opposed to before where they're kind of doing whatever young people do on social media. So I think that's pretty cool that we're actually able to use it as a learning experience and hopefully set them up for success in the future.
Yeah, it's that, I love the responsibility part of it. And I don't know if there's an exact right answer, because each teacher has to be authentic and be themselves. And if it's part of you, then great. You know, I kind of got into it because of my kids back about 15, 20 years ago. But then it grew on me, realizing that, thought that you got to meet kids where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And as it kept on growing, man, I'll tell you what, relationships, just when Snapchat came out, the kids were dying that a dude with gray hair could put a camera up and do a selfie Snapchat with some of my basketball teams. Some funnest moments. They're like, hey, you're not such an old guy after all, you know. It's, how old are you? And I tell them I'm 56. You're older than my grandpa. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But and you're doing Snapchat, so it's just like, it's meeting them where they're at. I don't care what age, whether you're 22 starting out and teaching or you're 62 still teaching.
Yes.
And you got to be you. And that was always kind of me. And one thing I like, before we get too close to wrapping up here, I heard you talk before in the podcast about CHAMP, your acronym, and I really like that. And if you can kind of share that, I think that's a great tool for people to think about when they're building relationships and connecting with their students.
Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely. So I in my journey, once I started tying everything into Rita Pearson's TED Talk, the Champion TED Talk, I'm a fan of acronyms because that's a way for me to remember things. So I came up with 5 ways to reach kids, and it's nothing revolutionary. Again, it's something that I see other rockstar teachers doing, either in person or when I go see their schools, or virtually, right, or on Twitter, or whatever the case. So the C in CHAMP stands for celebrate. A good way to reach kids and make them feel valued, make them feel heard, is to celebrate big wins, small wins. I think teachers should be celebrating kids as much as possible, right? Especially during these times. That could be celebrating effort. That could be celebrating a correct answer. That could be celebrating coming to school on time. For me, it was a celebration just to come to my class. If y'all came to my class, we're having a celebration. We're gonna have a little quick party at the beginning where I tell kids, as soon as we get in, we sit down, I say, good morning, class. And they say, good morning, Mr. R. And I say, I'm so happy to see you, class. We're so happy to see you too, Mr. R. Then 2 classes in Ric Flair. Woo! And the kids are pumped. And I said, y'all could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here in the Avid classroom. I promise you, I'm not going to waste your time today. That right there. Now that kid who came in, who maybe is sad for the day, he sees all his class pumped and energized. Well, positive energy is contagious. That's research-based as well. So celebrate kids, celebrate anything, and celebrate often. The H in CHAMP stands for humble, right? Be humble, be human, have humility. Sometimes as educators, either as teachers or administrators or counselors, it doesn't matter what your role is. Sometimes we just have to take off that teacher badge and we just have to be human with our kids for a little bit. And once the kids see that we're human too, then they can open up to us. Then they'll be more liable to actually follow through with what we're asking them to do. Because a lot of kids, as you know, if we see a kid at Walmart, they're like, whoa, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm shopping, man. I gotta eat too, right?
I'm a real person. I live life too.
Right. So once they see that we're human, I think that right there is a big a bridge to the relationship piece. The A in CHAMP is approachable. Are you approachable? Right? Are you that teacher who when a kid comes to your classroom, you got arms crossed, you got the stank face on, and you just look mad, like you don't want to be there, you look miserable, right? Or are you that teacher who's giving high fives, fist bumps, or nowadays you don't even have to touch anymore. You can do an air high five. I've seen a bunch of educators. My boy, the dope educator, does that. He went viral again for his David. I can't remember his last name, but he goes by the dope educator. He was just on Good Morning America. He has he has greetings for kids where he doesn't touch them, but they're doing a whole choreographed routine, and then they go into their class and they are just pumped. So are you approachable? And I think that's a big one for administrators, actually. Anytime I visit a school, I know exactly who some of the administrators are because they don't talk. Some, not all, again, not all, some, they're mad. They are directing traffic left and right, but their tone, so being approachable also your tone plays into that as well. So many aspects go into approachable: facial expressions, your body language, the energy that you put out. And kids can read that energy quickly, more than we realize. The M in CHAMP is motivate. How do you motivate your students? I know for me, coming from a predominantly Hispanic town, a lot of the people in our books are white, right? A lot of the heroes in our books are white. And I need to show my kids, hey, that's all true, that's all fun, but there's also Hispanics who are changing the games, who have doctorate degrees also, right? There's also Black people who are very successful. So showing kids people who look like them that are successful, and showing kids that, hey, these people are struggling just like we are, just like we're in the struggle. No one came to school in a limo today, right? No one here can just get on their private jet tomorrow and fly to California, right? We're all in our own struggle, but there are people who look like you that are not in our textbooks that we need to learn about as well. So one thing I love doing is I like letting my kids research people. And then we put those posters all over the room. Now they're seeing people from different cultures who look like them and who are successful. And that's a really big way that I motivate my kids. And then the last one is, the last letter of CHAMP is P, praise. Giving kids praise for anything and everything possible. You know, oftentimes we celebrate right answers, but why don't we give praise for the effort when a kid gets the answer wrong, right? As a student myself, I had that teacher who, if I got the answer, I raised my hand, got the answer wrong, he made me feel foolish. He made me feel like I was dumb. So if a kid gets an answer wrong in my class, I'm like, man, hey, we're so close. That was a great answer. Thank you for being brave enough to try. I said, but you're on track. We'll get there.
Closer to learning, because mistakes are part of learning. You don't.
There we go.
First time.
Yeah. So giving praise for anything and everything possible. Giving praise for a kid. Maybe he's late 4 days out of the week, but he's early on Friday because he's in a good mood. Well, I'm gonna give you praise. Like, yo, you came on time on Friday. Like, let's go. Can you do it again on Monday? And that right there, like, I got you, mister. I got you. I'm gonna try, right? Or the kid who never participates, but participates just one time. I'm gonna praise that kid like if he won the Super Bowl, because that can change the whole kid's day around, and that can change his whole experience around with education. Because there's plenty of kids out there who are like me, who don't like school, and that's okay. But I tell kids it's okay to not like school, but just because you don't like school doesn't mean that you can't do good in school. So once they feel that they're praised, then they will give their full. And I always tell people, when we give praise, it empowers people, right? So praise is powerful because it empowers people to give their full effort. And once kids understand that I'm going to get some praise for my effort, I'm going to get some praise for whatever I'm doing today, I'm going to continue that action. I'm going to continue that behavior.
I love that acronym, and I think it's a great thing that is teachers, whether you're experienced or just new in the profession, just to have those thoughts, because each day you got to kind of, they're when you talk about this, they're not great secrets, but it's kind of putting it in a way where somebody can just say, okay, this makes sense now, and I can kind of put it together. Because I remember many times people come and say, how do you build better relationships? And people go, well, you just kind of do. And it's a number of my friends have been administrators, evaluation is such a big part in schools nowadays. And when it comes to lesson design and all these other things, it's really easy to find PD for that. But when that teacher's got all that down, but they're just missing that connection part with the kids, where do you go? And there's a hand, I mean, I'm sure you go out there, people start bringing you in, hey, this is great, this is great. And sometimes leadership, they don't quite get that yet because of that part of being open and approachable. You know, you can still lead because really as teachers in the classroom and even students in the classroom, we're all leaders.
Yes.
Leaders aren't appointed. The best leaders are the ones that just lead, that have
Yes.
influence with people in a positive way that help that person grow and get to the next step. And one of the big things, and I could probably talk all day with you here, but what I like to wrap up on is I
Sure.
know you do it about teacher burnout. And one of the things I've seen, I've been around, especially you didn't see a lot of it back when I started teaching back 35, 40 years ago. People would come into teaching and do it their whole career, but you're seeing more and more. There's more people after 3 to 5 to 7 years just say, well, I got to go do something else. And then a lot of new people, I mean, the number of people going into pre-service teacher programs, at least up here in the upper Midwest, is dramatically shrinking. It's shrunk by like almost 50, 60%. So in the next 5, 10 years, colleges aren't going to be putting many new teachers out, but the kids are here. So
Right.
we got to find a way to attract them and keep them. So let's talk about some of the things about how to help teachers deal with these stresses, whether it's the testing going on or the administration, the parents, just the problems the kids have, because that can eat you up sometimes too. And you look at that poor kid and you just wish you could bring him into your home and hug him and care for him. But you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. Right. So one, I think across the board, I think teachers need a significant pay raise. And there, I mean, I don't know how that's going to be, how that's possible. But it's something I always preach. Teachers deserve a significant pay raise. And that's substitutes as well. That's counselors. I think anyone in a school building deserve a significant pay raise. So I'll start there. But I like to talk to teachers about a good way to prevent teacher burnout is to always remember your why, right? Simon Sinek says, start with why. And it's something that sounds so kind of simple, but when you really apply it, when you really apply starting with why, you won't lose your way. So that's why I tell teachers all the time, when you know your why, you will not lose your way. And Inky Johnson says, people don't burn out because of what they do. People burn out because life makes them forget why they do it.
Yep.
And with teachers, the curriculum and testing is the biggest one, I think. Pay, all these different factors force teachers to forget their why sometimes, or maybe not forget, maybe that's the wrong word, but it forces teachers to focus on other things other than their why. And if we can all go back to our first interview, if we stick to doing what we said we're going to do in that first interview with that same passion, that same energy, then that will help us not forget our why. And I experienced that myself, because my last year, I was leaving in tears. Let me tell you, I was leaving in tears like 3-4 days a week because of everything that was coming down from the top. Yeah. And I thought, I can't do this, right? I cannot continue with this. And then I called my mom, right? As tough as I am, right?
Yep.
Us tough guys, we're gonna call mom when we feel like crying. So I called mom and I told mom, I was like, I can't do this no more. This is not what I signed up for. I told her I was in the car on the way to central office to resign. And I told my mom, that's it. And my mom, being the strong Hispanic mom that she is, she yelled at me, right? She scolded me and she's like, no, sir. You turn back around. She's like, you get back to that school and you remember your why. I preached to my mom about the why as well. She said, you remember that the kids at that school, Rick, they need you. Kids at that school, they see you as a father figure or a big brother or a mentor. She said, stop worrying about administration. Go work with your kids. Go do what you were called to do. Right. And she added some words in there that I don't want to say online, but my mom she's a tough mom. So when mama talks to you that way, you listen. So I turned back around, I went back to school and I finished the year on fire. Right. And I made a decision that the way I started the year in August with that fire, that passion, that drive, I was going to end that way in May. And because I did so, because I focused on my kids and I focused on my why, good things happened for me. And that's when Ellen came calling. And had I not remembered my why or focused on my why, then that whole Ellen experience wouldn't have happened. And for me, the only reason I mentioned Ellen is it was a great experience. I loved it. But what I loved the most was when I came back home to El Paso from the show, and I had a watch party with my kids at Peter Piper, and seeing their faces and seeing them say, wow, my teacher's a celebrity. And I said, guys, I'm just a regular dude. Like, I don't even have this big vocabulary. I'm sure you noticed, I'm just a regular cat from the northeast of El Paso. I was like, if this is possible for me, then what's in store for you all?
Yeah.
And just seeing them like, they got it. They're like, wow. And then they're like, you're right, mister, you are a regular guy. I'm like, yeah, thanks, guys. So always remember your why. Go back to your why. And when you know your why, you won't lose your way.
Yeah, I think when I first started out teaching, you talked about when you got going, like, okay, I got the title, I got the job, and I was going through that for a few years. I was coaching, I was out recruiting, running across the country and things. And then it actually be 35 years ago, this April 1st coming up, my father was 50 years old and found out he had cancer.
Oh
And
yeah.
he was a teacher and educator and a coach, just got done winning the state championship the year before. And I came back. I just been up here in Minnesota and where I was teaching at the time, and I came back for his funeral. And I got up like most sons would at their parents' funeral, and got him, gave a talk. And my mom and sister and I, so we were sitting in the back room waiting until the funeral was ready to start. And when I came walking out, the people I saw there, and he'd been teaching for close to 30 years. People came from around the country that I didn't
Wow.
have any idea were coming. He'd been in that city for quite a while. The church was packed, people around there, and he had a gathering afterwards. And it's kind of like, sometimes you look like the story of Scrooge, where Christmas passed, and you kind of see what might not have been or what could have been. And we don't get a chance to go out to the end of our life and look back and see what happened. But I had the opportunity to see these people, my dad, and I'm like, whoa, I'm just starting out in this journey. This is something pretty serious. I was so busy caught up in myself when I was doing it at a young age, that why part, it
Hmm.
really kind of hit me then that, someday if I do this right, there's going to be people saying, hey, like you talked about your teachers, your coach, and stuff, that this is helping shape their life to wherever they choose to go. And I've been fortunate if I've been in it long enough, and I've heard some of those positive stories come back now because I've been having my former students' kids, and I've even had some of their grandkids in class yet. So it's like, it's interesting, but that why thing's such a big part, and that's what got me through a lot of my tough times. And I actually have a series I'm putting together, will be out the next week on my channel, that kind of dealing with the why part, dreams, passion, and purpose. And that's kind of what, trying to find that out. And I spent a lot of years, and once I found that out, no matter what happened, I could get through the good days and the bad days. Because
Yeah.
trust me, in education, there's gonna be bad days, there's gonna be great days, and
Right.
you want to hope you have a lot of good days. And every day is a great day. You're there making a difference with kids. And just if there's any parting thing that you could say here to somebody either young in the profession or in the middle of it, kind of wondering, should I stay here like that day for you, of encouragement, or somebody's wondering, should I be a teacher at all or not, just to say what's noble about this profession and why you think they're in the right spot, or something you can do to give them a little push to help, because we need teachers to stay here and we need more to come here.
Definitely. This wrap up kind of reminds me of a conversation I had last night with a rock star teacher. She's here in El Paso, and we were looking at a yearbook, and she was saying, "Oh my gosh, there's this teacher and this teacher and this teacher," and she was talking about them with so much passion, right? And one of the principals, an AP actually, who's a principal now, Mr. Tovar, Veta was talking about him, and she even kind of teared up, right? And I thought, wow, that's legacy. And she's a teacher, she's a rock star teacher doing her thing too. And I told her, your kids, she has a little fifth grade. I said, your kids are gonna remember you the rest of their lives too,
Yeah.
right? So if you're in that, if you're in the business to make a difference in kids' lives, then education is the way to go, right? Education, being a teacher, being a para, being a principal, account, whatever the case, if you're in the education field, that's a good way to leave a legacy, right? A legacy that matters. And my mentor always told me, Ricky, Jennifer DeGraff, she always says, Ricky, how do you want to be remembered? When it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered? So I said, man, you're right. So let me start taking that to a step further. And I said, well, why don't we live the way we want to be remembered? Let's not just ask how, let's live the way we want to be remembered. So teachers like Veto, principals like Mr. Tovar, teachers like Jennifer DeGraff, they're all living the way they want to be remembered. They want to be remembered as being a caring person, a passionate person. And I guarantee you, none of them wants to be remembered for having the best lesson plans, right? I
Yeah.
guarantee you, none of them wants to be remembered for being the best test administrator. So if you're in the business, or if it's in your heart to make a difference with kids, then just think about how you want to be remembered and live the way you want to be remembered. But we do need more teachers. We need more passionate teachers who want to come into this profession for the right reasons. Summers off, cool. Like, I get it, right? We think it's summers off, right? Vacations, it's cool. But little do we know that the amount of work we're doing, like, we really need those summers off. And a lot of teachers are still working throughout the summer. So don't do it for the summers off. Don't do it for the weekends off. Do it because you want to make the impact.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I got a lot more years left, but I feel really fortunate to have retired from a career that I really felt fulfilled in. And that's now I want to try and give back to teachers to continue that whatever way I can, and kids also. But I appreciate you saying that so much, man, because it is such a fulfilling career. And I know 20 years from now, 25 years from now, you're going to have people lining up saying, thank you, Ricky. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart and your passion, because it helped me get through those days. It totally changed my life, and that's a blessing to have somebody with your passion. I know the first time I heard you on that podcast, I just like, got to connect with this dude somehow.
Well, I tell you what, man, you've done something that no one's ever done on a podcast, and you made me tear up.
Oh, all right. Well, sometimes it's nice to have some good positive tears to know what you're doing. And I can't enough for you taking the time. And as I progress, I want to try and grow this thing. And something I like to touch on is leadership down the road and have a discussion with you and bring you to that. I got some different people, because first I want to focus on teachers and kids connecting and teachers surviving. But there's a lot more in education than just that. So I'm going to wrap up here, folks. I want to tell you all, thanks for tuning in today. I'm Coach Edge Tips. I hope you love this. I'm going to share Rick's information in the description part of the show here, so we connect. Schools might want to have him come in person and speak or connect with them. And Ricky, thanks so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
God bless. God bless. Wow, what a discussion. I don't even know where to begin in a wrap up right here. I would really encourage you to go back and listen to him again and take a lot of your own notes. But like the whole spiel of reach them before you teach them, just making connections. And I think when you hear Ricky talk, you can see the heart and the gratitude that he exemplifies himself and the passion he has to make kids believe in themselves, to become all they can become. And I really loved his acronym, CHAMP. I think that's awesome. And it's a great thing. I think every teacher, anybody who works with the youth in America should be considering every single day, even as a parent, just having this type of attitude, take the CHAMP system to the kids. And when he wrapped up, he talked about building relational capacity. And that's such an important thing, that be intentional about what you're doing. And when you really create these relationships and these connections with kids and you reach them before you teach them, that's where the magic really takes place. Ricky's contact information, his website link is all in the description on the show here today. So if you want to connect with them and meet with them, I know he's open. He just has a true passion to give back to people because of where he came from life. You heard his personal story. What an awesome, moving story. And sometimes you let the negative with the guy that told him he wasn't going to do it and get through college. He got through college, got his master's, and now he's working on his doctorate. So I'm sure Ricky will touch thousands and thousands of teachers and students throughout America the rest of his life. So thanks a lot for tuning in today. Be sure and share this video with others. I think there's so much great impact in here that can make such a difference through others working with the kids that they work with. So thank you. We'll see you on the next episode.